All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Intentional Conversations. This is we haven't connected in some time. So I'm going to do my normal, which is go ahead and start the live on Facebook because you have to start it separately. So give me one moment, please. We'll get this party started. I'm so excited to talk tonight about the topics we will be going over. So let's see here. Let me see if I can see my live. Oh, I do. Okay, so let me edit, share with more than me, and save that. All right, so it should be now available for others to see as well. Perfect. All right. So I'll just wait for a few minutes before we get this party started. Oh, I'll be using my phone too today because I have some things I wanted to, some questions for us to go over, our exploratory questions. And so I'll wait a few minutes. I know there's a delay typically both on all the social media platforms as it relates to this. But what I'll do is ask, as always, go ahead and put a comment. Let me know you're out there so that I can see what social media platform is working as it should. And yeah, that'll be amazing. So I haven't seen you all. Well, technically, I haven't spoken to you all since last month before I went on my trip to Seattle. Hey, sister Erin, how you doing, lovely? I'm excited that you're on. All right, come through Salted Crust. That's my y'all need to be following Salted Crust. It has some amazing desserts. A lot of different things. Anyway, just connect with that. That's on Facebook as well as Instagram. They have, just go on the site because there is an associated site with it that has some other things that you would be interested in as it relates to the culinary space, I would say altogether, whether you just like to eat or you like to cook and eat. Both are important. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. You guys know how, those that have been joining, I like to get started on time so that I'm mindful of your time. I know that you invest time to join me, and I don't want to keep you too long. So I am going to go ahead and get started. I typically don't pay attention to how many people join because my assignment is very clear, which is just to execute and engage in the dialogue. And so whoever's on, I don't care if I have one person, two people, or if it's just me. Typically, it will never be just me because Toya, who's also in the room with me, will typically be here. What's up, Almond Joy? I'm just messing around. Almond Eyes. Why do I do that every time? That must be, all of them are good. Okay, so don't get me. All right, so our topic today is really more of a Q&A. So I'm going to, like I said last time when we connected, I really want to have more of a panel conversation. And the wonderful thing about the platform that I use is that all I have to do, for those of you that may be interested in doing this with me, I just need to give you the link, set it up as a panel discussion, and then whatever our topic is, we'll just go over that. So next week, I'll try to, no, I'm not next week, but the week after next, because it's every first and third Tuesday. I'll just have a panel discussion. So if you're interested, let me know. If you're someone I'm interested in, which are all the people on here so far, then I will reach out to you too. Just in case you didn't hear me say I needed you on here. So anyhow, So I'm excited because the topic we're going to go over today is really about us sharing our own best practices, own experiences, insight, etc. This topic that thank you, Erin and Toya, who's in the room. She normally she does get an option, but then I just try to woo her to come and do it with me no matter what. So okay, cool. Okay, I'm excited already. And so let me give my disclaimer. Any insight that's shared on today's conversation, again, is not coming from a perspective of expert opinion or counseling, etc. Right? The goal here is to open up dialogue on specific topics that typically impact everyone, right? Everybody has a parent. Everyone has a father. Everyone has a mother. Now, whether or not we know who those individuals are, whether they're still living, whether we're connected with them, you have a lot of different dynamics that way. But whether we have children and we're connected, again, all of us are different. But the amazing thing about having intentional conversations is that as we share insight, we may not necessarily know what's going to be impactful to us unless we just engage in the dialogue, right? And sometimes engaging is just listening, sometimes it's typing something in, sometimes it is both, but also carrying these types of questions, topics, etc., into other discussion areas that may, again, open up for additional dialogue. The goal is to share best practices, lessons learned, expand our perspective or way of thinking, so that we can really elevate in the way we and expand the way we think about particular topics. The other thing is the insight that we share. We want to make sure that it's not only compassionate, right? We see people, meet people where they are, encourage them to to grow and as much as we can, but it's also course corrective, right? Real love is both compassionate and course corrective. So everything that's shared on here you may not agree with, but the awesome thing is you don't have to, right? We all think differently, and this is not a space for argument. It's just sometimes you have a difference of opinion, or you're not ready to process something, or we may not be ready to process a different perspective. But the ask is that you just consider. All right. So let's get into our questions. But before we do, you guys know I'll be trying to leverage my resources here just to see if I'm getting my life together here. So I went ahead in the post, I went ahead and put the exploratory questions that we'll go over today, just so everybody has an idea of what we're conversing about. And then I've also found it to be helpful for those people that watch after. Sometimes they like to see what we're talking about and then listen and then engage in their responses or share their responses. So the focus of today is candid perspectives, meaning we want everybody to be, transparent as much as you can. But we want to talk about what are the essential characteristics of a good father or a great father, right? Those two, for me, they're synonymous from my experience. But again, that's not everybody's perspective. So I have questions. Again, the insight you share hopefully will help expand my thoughts and other people here. But I'm going to start with a quote. And the quote is from I put it in my book, but it's a famous quote by Billy Graham. And it says, "A good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, and unnoticed, and yet one of the most valuable assets in society." So what I hear in this quote, you know what, let me see if I can leverage my resource and share my screen here. Let's see what happens. Y'all know I didn't put my glasses on. So let's see here. Look, I got it even without my glasses. All right. So chapter 2 is where I put this quote. And again, it's a good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, and yet one of the most valuable assets in our society. Do you all agree with that statement, or do you disagree? What are your thoughts? And you can just write it quickly, disagree, agree, or expound on it if you'd like. Hence is why I like a more interactive discussion than why I want more of a panel. But I'll go ahead and read the comments out once they come through. I know there's a slight delay. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Okay, I agree. Okay. Anybody else? Only a few of us on here, so I'm not waiting for like 1,000 people to respond. So I would say I agree with this statement as well. And the reason why this is essential is because I think, and why I agree, is because I feel like sometimes people that do good, as well as mothers, we oftentimes overlook them and we focus on what's the bad part of things. We put a lot of attention there. And sometimes we don't mean to, but we say, well, they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right? They're just doing the job they're supposed to be doing as a father. But most of us know that in today's world, not only, and we showed stats last time we were connected, that the United States is leading in single parent household led by mothers, but after that was Paris, France, Germany. There were so many different countries, and they were not necessarily African focused countries that we were having this problem in. And I call that out because, again, a lot of times people assume that we have struggles with having fathers present only in the Black community, which is not a true statement. Not in any city in the United States and not around the world. That's not an accurate, it's not a fact, right? And it's not accurate. So, but what it says is that a lot of us around the world are struggling because we don't get to have exposure or get to experience good fathers. And because of that, perhaps that also may be why they are unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, because we're suffering in a lot of ways because we don't feel like they're present. I will share that whether they're not present because they have elected not to be, whether they're not present because the mother makes it challenging for them to be, because there's a lot going on, or whether some have passed away. There was one stat that I shared with you guys where a study was done on men that committed suicide and left letters, and it said that the letters had specific words that were pretty consistent, which is, I feel, useless, worthless, and kind of like unneeded. So, and that's just a message that, again, is permeating around the world, that men are not necessarily needed. Fathers are needed. And we're not even talking about the good ones. We actually need good, great fathers. And being just mediocre is not okay for where we're at in this society. Let me read a comment here. Someone said that a man can do the bare minimum of his responsibilities as a father, and because it's so rare, he is seen as an exceptional dad. I agree. That's another perspective. Just because we're struggling with actually seeing men present, when they do just the bare minimum, sometimes it's like, oh, he is amazing. He went and picked up the kids and he made sure this happened or that. And so then we sometimes have a debate there because some people are like, wait a minute, he's doing the basic. He's doing like only 5% of what the mom's doing. And he's getting praise, he's getting credit. And that sometimes can make women and mothers a little more contentious because we're like, wait a minute, ma'am, sir. What in the world? Where's our accolades? And it can seem like we are complaining or we don't like our jobs or our role. but that's not the case either. But the biggest thing is that we then start to go down these rabbit holes of different topics associated with these kind of conversations, and we don't get back to the main topic, which is what are our disconnects? Do we really know what a good father looks like? Does the men that we have and that are having children today, just like women. Okay, so I also want to preface, a lot of my conversation tonight is on men. So if you leave a comment saying, what about women? We're not talking about women right now. We're talking about men tonight. And that's the piece that is going to be, I'm going to focus in on. Again, not only positives, but some corrective things we have to do, but it's all supposed to be productive. We'll get to women as well. And most of our conversation last time was on the woman's role in paternity and the gaps that we have there. So again, I want to make sure that no one gets this misconstrued, but we really have to talk about why we're having such a disconnect and why we feel like these men are unseen, unpraised, unheard, or unnoticed. And then why, when they're noticed or when they do a little bit, why is that then the standard, which is not sometimes enough. So I actually have questions that I put out here for you guys. And I'm at the end, I'm going to share with you another bonus dad of mine, because I feel like it'll be a good example of, I actually, in the book, I put the characteristics that I love most and that imprinted me most. And then I put a impact story, which is how I saw those characteristics manifested, right? So that's what's important. How did I get to experience these attributes, and why do I feel like these men were good fathers for me? And that's the key. When I'm asking you guys questions, you don't have to, and this is something in today's world, we sometimes offer extra explanations to people. If you feel like your perspective or definition or example you share is enough, you don't necessarily have to convince anyone. This forum is for you to just share. People can take it or they can leave it. So you don't have to feel pressure to go into a lot of explanation. But if you think it will help us gain perspective or could help someone else learn from your story, we do encourage you to share it. All right. So here's a question that I have for you guys in the exploratory question section. I said, what qualities or personality traits are exhibited by good fathers or great fathers? So if you guys could just put in the comments, what are some characteristics? Because I think that if we start there by providing definitions or insight around characteristics that are good, that should be distributed, perhaps it may be something that someone can use. So what are some that you guys think? And while you put that in, I'm going to go ahead and go to chapter 3 in the book, because every man that I interviewed, both here in the U.S. and outside in different ages, I asked them the same question. So what are some, I actually asked them what attributes that they would love to be known for. So go ahead and put that in, and then I'll share. So what are some characteristics or attributes that good fathers demonstrate? All right. Oh, let's see here. All right. Good father is present, or great father is present, but he's not just there. He is intentionally active in the lives of his kids. I agree with that. Anyone else? And again, the reason why this is so important for us to actually put words to what we think is because if we say something's not present and we can't articulate what that looks like, if it were available and present, then, how do we know when it shows up? So we have to spend some time saying, all right, so here's what it looks like. Here's what good looks like to me. Here's what great looks like to me. We are oftentimes on autopilot of what bad looks like and what I don't want, or what I know for sure shouldn't be happening. But becoming more familiar with what does look good and what is what's necessary, and really shifting our narrative to that and having more dialogue around that sometimes comes back to the power of our words, speaking things into existence, positive reinforcement, actually noticing and really recognizing someone when they're demonstrating something that we think is needed. All right. They create a safe space for, he creates a safe space for his family to be open with communication. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let me share some of these attributes that these men said, and then I'm gonna go back because the men also gave their lessons learned and best practices to other men, what they would recommend other men consider. Can you guys see this? I wonder if I can come up. Uh-oh, no, I tried to do too much. I don't even know what happened. I couldn't see you guys no more. Okay, can you see that? Oh, look at me. All right, look at me, I'm doing it. All right. Okay, so I asked the men, when your kid, when my child or children speaks of me, I want them to say that I'm blank kind of dad. And why this was important is for them to articulate what are some characteristics that they feel are good, right? So when we talk about legacy and our kids, knowing us by a particular attribute or characteristic, it really is about shaping their experience. So, and when I say I did a lot of interviews, all races, except for Hispanics, I did not get an interviewer or interviewee in that space. But anyway, more to come. Who knows? But I just consolidated all of the words that the fathers use, and they all use the same words. They feel like fathers and what they would want to be known as are approachable, they're attentive, they're available, they're caring, they're compassionate, they're encouraging, they're fun, they're hardworking, they're humble, they're generous, they're giving, they're God-fearing, influential, they're knowledgeable, they're loving, they're nice, they're supportive, they're present. And we talked a lot about present. And so when they say present, they're talking about physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for those that were spiritual, because some people were atheists. Some of the fathers were atheists that I interviewed, so they weren't on those spiritual things. Okay. And responsible. They feel like these were the attributes that the men that I interviewed said good fathers should exhibit all of these attributes plus more. And I agree with what you shared, Toya. Intentionality and being active, and sometimes it's manifested with these attributes. And then what Amin Glaze said, providing safety in communication, right? So for your family to communicate effectively. And so let me also share with you guys, I may be a little hard. I feel like there are some other attributes that men should exhibit, which are to remember that he's a teacher, right? I think that oftentimes good fathers take the time to teach in their own kind of way. It's not the way that we do as mothers. Please forgive me, my alarm is going off. Give me a second. Thank you, sweetie. But it's not the same way as mothers, but there is sometimes a perspective where people assume that the mother will teach and the father will actually just execute. Well, really, we need fathers to both execute and then take time to explain, because it makes it easier to actually understand what he's really feeling. It helps the kid understand how to communicate with sometimes a authority figure that's more intimidating in a lot of ways to children. So we need fathers to take that role and actually say, all right, from a teacher or advisement perspective, to be able to say, hey, this is dad is showing you this, and let me take the time to share with you why. Right. I also feel like fathers have they do amazing with, I believe, listening, being a great sounding board, probably sometimes more than moms, because they're not going to ask as many questions. But good fathers do that. Good fathers take time to actually invest and create a space where conversations can flow smoothly. But I think the opportunity for a lot of guys is to be able to then reciprocate in the conversational dialogue. It may not be asking a lot of questions, but it may be just providing, like, recapping or paraphrasing so that the other person knows that you're listening. So intentional fathers are definitely ones that communicate more effectively. So let me share with you guys another question that I asked men. What are lessons learned or best practices that you would share with other men about fatherhood? So, because I'm sure I don't have any men on here, and I'm gonna need for some men to be on here. I don't know what to do to get them on here, but other than getting them on a panel, which I'll do, because really this is the information they need. It's good for us to have as women, because that's another question I'm going to ask you all. How do we help and how do we encourage? A lot of us have sons, we have brothers, we have guys that we connect with, friends, etc., and we can pass this information. But there's something about men sharing information with each other that is so significant. I asked, when I was interviewing men, I asked the question of, I said, just like, and I don't know, you guys hit me up if I'm saying this wrong, but I said, hey, I'm about to ask you some of these other questions, but help me understand. If you guys see I noticed that when men know that another father is not present for their kid, or they're out of order with their family, sometimes other men, you're not checking each other. So I gave an example. I said, sometimes when women get together, we talk about, hey girl, we noticed that, Asia had a game. You weren't there. Did you want me to help you? Is there something going on? Like, we ask and we probe and we ask, we want to say, girl, you weren't there. Where were you at? That was more important. That's what we want to say. But we we ask other questions. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes, women, they'll be like, girl, they won't tell the girl, she wasn't at her daughter's thing. Where was she at? Because she'd been missing in action. But we pay attention and we sometimes address certain things regarding relational activities with the children or co-parent partnerships, etc. A way to really hold some accountability, but we may say at the end, after we say everything, but that ain't my business, so I ain't gonna get into all that. Well, I asked the men, I said, when you notice that your friend constantly shows up to games or bars or whatever, but he's not at the football game, he's not at the talent show, he's not at any parents student teacher conferences, he's at the place where he's connected with other people, other women, or having a good time, but you don't ever see him show up for his family. And you guys know that. Do you guys ever take time to actually ask or inquire? And I will say, I only had maybe a handful of guys say yes. Most of the guys said no. So my question was, why? And they said, oftentimes when we get together as men, we're trying to decompress. And so we don't talk a lot about the emotional elements and things that are happening that will cause us more stress. We just come to decompress. We don't want to get too emotional. We don't want to get into the details like women may want to, but we don't want to do that. So we may know that my guy is betting $200 on a game, but we know his baby's mom told my wife he ain't paid no child support for 3 weeks, or 3 months. And so, but we're not going to check him on that, because he said, one guy said, number one, we don't want him to check us if we're out of order. And number two, it's just uncomfortable. So oftentimes they have a hard time finding the words. And so they have good intentions, but they don't follow through because something else comes up. And so so this was a good way to ask men, how do you share best practices with each other? And oftentimes, again, they said they didn't. A few men did say that they took time. They had a good connect group with men, that a brotherhood or father kind of connect support group where they hold each other accountable, which is great. I think that when you can find that, that's amazing. But if not, my next question to you guys was, let me see here. What did I ask? Uh-oh, I'm doing the wrong things. I asked, how can a man cultivate productive parenting characteristics or productive parenting skills if he has not had proper exposure or examples? So how does he cultivate? How does a father cultivate the characteristics that we mentioned, to be a good communicator, to be someone that creates a safe space? You guys said someone that is present. How does he do that? Because a lot of times I hear men say, well, my father wasn't there for me. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have somebody, or the father figures I had, they were cool and they taught me, business, or they taught me the game or whatever, but they didn't teach me how to show up. They didn't teach me how to be transparent. They didn't teach me what safety looks like. They didn't teach me how important consistent parenting is. So how am I supposed to be expected to give that to another person when I don't have it myself, or I don't know what it looks like? And hey, that's something to consider. But the question I then had is, how do you get it from here? So what are your thoughts? What do you all think? And I think that some of us, and if you're a woman here that wasn't necessarily raised by another mom, or a mother figure, or your biological mom, and you still are, and you're now a mom, and you have found a way to still show up in that space, what did you do? Right? Because maybe that best practice could be something a man can use. All right. So first he has to be aware of it. Then he has this comment. Then he has to ask, seek, and find. He has, you going to the word here. He has to want to be better. That's true. Anybody else? What does a man need to do if he doesn't have any way of he hasn't had any blueprint? How does he become a good father? All right. What's up, Jerry? He has to seek out resources to educate himself. Absolutely, same thing. Yes. And identify a good father who can communicate with, and learn from. Absolutely. So what I hear us saying is that he needs to leverage his resource. He needs to first acknowledge that, hey, this is something that I already know. And oftentimes a lot of men they do acknowledge that. That's something that people scream from the rooftop. My daddy wasn't there. I didn't have nobody. So that is not the disconnect. It is what Toya and Jerry said, which is, okay, now what? So you've acknowledged that, but it oftentimes is from more of a victim perspective. But you can't say that because then they'll be like, I'm not a victim, right? And again, what do we do? Because most of these people are then having, most of these men are having children and leaving them in the same condition as they were in, right? And not, they need to not be embarrassed to seek the information. Absolutely. And so the reason why I believe that I was led to ask questions, these questions, and really write it in the book like this was because to Marcel's point, there's some people that will never ask, whether it's, I don't think all the times it's a kind of a ego pride where they're like, oh, I want to know everything. Sometimes I think it's an embarrassment, like it was stated here. They don't want to seem like they don't know. The other thing is that sometimes they don't know how to articulate it. And then when they ask, sometimes they're asking the wrong people, the wrong resources. Sometimes they feel like the only people that they can ask are counselors, and they're not, there's that stigma of nothing's wrong with me, so I don't need a counselor. I honestly, and this is real talk, you guys, I just had a meeting a couple weeks ago and was coordinating something with between the US and India, and we were talking about advertising, just reminding people to leverage their resources and showing them HR free resources with health, mental health and wellness and counseling sessions that are all free. And India and here, different places in the US, they all said, well, people may not like that because they don't want to feel crazy. And I'm like, crazy? Counseling is not, if somebody goes to counseling, they're crazy. And that is just, it's not something, even though we talk about it a lot, it's still something that people feel. I don't want to feel like something's wrong with me if I'm asking someone for help. And but the reality is, I don't know, I'm gonna lean in. Something is wrong because you don't got the information, right? So if you don't got the information, there is a disconnect. So something is wrong. And something sometimes is wrong with us. We have, and when I say wrong with us, I should say we have an opportunity to expand or elevate, but we're deciding not to because we're feeling like I don't want some. I care more about what other people may feel about me if I leverage these resources. But they don't get out of their own head to say, but if I don't get this, what does that mean for my kids? What does that mean for this next generation? What will my legacy be? And so pride, absolutely. And so here in the book, I went ahead and just asked the questions. And I tried to do my best to, along with our editors, to really recap what the fathers shared, because they may never go, some men may never go to counseling. Some men may never ask another man. Some men may never say, hey, Jerry, what are your thoughts about this? Or Daryl, is there something you can share with me? I know you raised Asia and Jaden and you didn't have a father. He wasn't present. Or you had a father, but he wasn't present. What did you learn? How did you learn that? Right? They may not do that. And so I feel like sometimes recapping it or sharing it in a different format may help. So this was the question: what are lessons learned or best practices that you would share with other men about fatherhood? And men were pretty candid. Take time to assess your approach to fatherhood and do whatever you need to do to adjust wherever needed. So this person was just like, you. And so you need to make sure you adjust accordingly. Avoid being overbearing simply because you are the authority figure. Just because you're the man and they're the child, that doesn't mean anything. You need to really find where you are in that relationship and then adjust accordingly. Take time to explore your kids, learn who they are, right? Because if you just really think about it, you want them to learn who you are. Most of the time as a parent, I will say, Cooley and I will say to our kids, real talk, this is our first time being parents. So please be patient with us too. And it's our first time at each age, your age group you go to. And so as my daughter, who's the traveler of the family, international traveler, always try to have my nerves in shamble. I know Marcel knows what it is because Asia and her bestie, they want to be international travelers. Never mind that we haven't had kids going over to different countries in this crazy world right now. And I now feel like, well, my mom used to be like, well, times has changed. It's not the same. And I used to be like, oh my gosh, mom, times have not changed. I should be able to just go down the block. But now I really feel like times have changed. But anyhow, but so all of these, again, a lot of men took time to share perspectives that I thought were phenomenal. Kids are always watching us and they imitate what they see, not what we say. So just be mindful of things of that, like that. So if you're a father and you weren't given an example, you can relate to a kid. They're just a little person. They have their own personality, just like you don't like people to say one thing and do another as an adult. They don't like it either. Right? Show up, be consistent, and create accountability. So this I think was amazing. Show up, be consistent, and create accountability. Meaning, going back to what Jerry said, find other men that will help you be accountable. You already know in the men's circle, they may not say, hey, what you doing, what you up to, especially if you have not appreciated them checking on you, or maybe you've given them a poor experience, like, hey, it's not, don't be checking on me. Sometimes giving a person approval to hold you accountable makes it a lot easier for them to say, hey, I noticed that you ain't been showing up. Is there something I can help you with? I know you told me that you wanted to do this. I'm just checking with you. And then it makes it easier. So I thought, well, this father was hilarious. Well, a lot of them were to me. Because they were very candid, and I love that. I love their transparency. Sometimes we dads may be tempted not to follow through on something because we don't have our shit together. So we duck and dodge, not thinking about how we appear to be inconsistent to our kids. But we really need to cut all that out and just show up anyway. Show up. Even if you don't have the money to run the kids around town to buy all types of shit. Most of the time, it doesn't even matter as much as we think it does. Show up. Even if the mother of your kids is tripping, you ain't there to see her no way. You guys, this is so true. You ain't there to see her no way. Show up. If we mess up, keep it real. Acknowledge your mistakes and apologize. Then work hard to stop bullshitting, because the bottom line is that our kids just want us to show up, to see them, hear about what makes them happy or sad. They just want us to be into them. They want us to be their biggest and most dependable fan and supporter. That right there, it should have been on the front page. Right? And boy, when you read the rest of this, you'll know this father is hilarious, because he be giving it to you raw each time. Okay. This goes back to what Jerry shared earlier. Build a support system throughout your community so that your kids know that people are paying attention to how they behave when you're not around. A support system that you and your kids can both trust and respect, because sometimes you're picking people and the kids are like, first of all, I don't even like her. Okay, I don't like him, or whatever. So anytime they come, I'm not listening. But if it's or your kids will say, Mom, Dad, this is the person, even she saw me doing this. And you're like, oh, she be lying all the time. I don't trust her. Right? So if you and your kids can get on the same page, then again, you don't need a blueprint from somebody else. You're learning through your relationship with the kids directly, right? So, and if they check your kid knows this, you better treat it like I'm checking you, because if I find out that you disrespected this person, we have a problem. A side note, I have to tell you guys this, it was hilarious. So and your kids should be so connected with you that they know what you would say and what you wouldn't say. Asia and I were going to the same doctor and we had the same nurse practitioner that checked us in. So Asia's appointment was after mine. This was just last year. Well, she then said to Asia told me this after, she was like, "Hey, is your mom's name Fashay?" Halley, and Asia said, "Oh yeah." She said, I just saw your mom." Asia was like, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Yeah, oh girl, we were talking about you." She told me, I guess she tried to say I said something negative. And Asia said, "I know you lying." My mom would never say that, nothing bad about me, with a straight face. Because Asia knows her mom. And she was like, "Oh, okay. You know your mom." But again, you have to create a relationship with your kids so that, again, whoever you tell them to check in with, or whoever whoever is maybe holding them accountable, you both need to trust them. I'll just read one more. There are so many here, you guys. Say sorry when you're wrong and mean it. Our kids already know what the deal is, and most of the time they're just waiting to see how we'll actually hold ourselves accountable. Show them that it's okay to acknowledge and own your mistake at any age. So if a father is not showing up, or a mother, again, right? Because again, I didn't have the best example, or whatever, all you have to do is say, "You know what? Tell that to the kid." Most of the time they're like, "Yeah, I'm seeing you struggling anyway." All right. And if you have that conversation, you can create boundaries in the conversation so that you create respect and things of that nature. But it also allows you grace to grow. And that's what we want. Again, you guys, there are like so many responses in here. I would read it to you, but hopefully you got your own book and you can read this. And if you're a person that, I'm not an audiobook person, I'm definitely a person that writes things down. Look, this is my own book, and I highlight, I write, I have I have stuff going on anyway. But anyhow, I think sometimes it's good to actually have a physical book so that you can actually take it and use it and place it somewhere so that you can remind yourself. Sometimes with audiobooks, again, everybody to each, their own. But I really feel like if you can, whatever is going to help hold you accountable or be a good reminder for you, that's what you should leverage. I just think that some of the feedback shared here by men in the book, it's something you'll have to revisit sometimes just to remind yourself. And some of the fathers, God has allowed me to reach back out to them if they were struggling in a particular area, because they've said, "This is the kind of father I want to be." And sometimes I've seen, just like I fall short, I've seen them fall short, and God has called me to reach out, and I'll say, hey, check out page number this, where you said this is what you wanted to be as a father. The Lord wants to know, are you still there? Are you still pursuing this? Because it seems like there's a disconnect. And so those are the things that we need to do to hold each other accountable. All right. So let me go back and ask you guys our next question. Next question. So just to recap once. So men, we said that if a man currently doesn't know how to, didn't have the best exposure or examples, how they can actually cultivate productive skills to be a parent is by reaching out, leveraging his resources, reaching out to other fathers, because oftentimes they respect what other men are saying, especially if they had experience around it. Counseling resources like this because I'm not the only person that has written a book. But the other resource I wanted to share with you guys, I put it in the post, is a book titled "What is the Father Like?" And so for those of you that, I know everybody that may listen to this are Christian, and that's fine. I say build a bridge and get over some stuff as it relates to when insight is shared, right? When insight is shared that can help you, sometimes don't get caught up in one area that you may not be in agreement with. Sometimes it's time you have to really think about, okay, so what's being shared, and are there other things that I can connect with? This is a book that actually goes through God's characteristics. And so I read this years ago and ordered it for my whole family. And then we started looking at it together, because the reality is that because I don't know who my biological father is, and sometimes people say that you can get certain characteristics, from your parents. I have a whole parent or a whole side of my family missing. And so that had, when I was growing up, made me curious. Oh, well, I wonder, who did I get this from? Clearly, when my mom was acting out of order, I said, Lord, she must have adopted me. But I know she wouldn't have went through that paperwork, so that didn't happen. So, but when I found this book, and I took the time to say, okay, Lord, you said you would be a father to the fatherless, and you said you adopted everyone, right? Whoever wants to view you or experience you as a father, you are willing to extend that experience. But how will we know what that experience is like if we don't know your characteristics or how you show up in that manner? So I decided to read this. And what I would say to you guys, this is one of the best books I have ever read. And let me just share why I love it so much. Okay, so here are the chapters, right? And the chapters are based on, it's like a first person conversation. So when he said, it's like he's talking to you. He'll say, well, when I say I'm the word, I mean that I came down and I did this. When I say I'm peace, I'm telling you, here's how I show up in your life. So it's like he's talking directly to you. So all of these are attributes, right? As your heavenly Father, I am. I provide you truth. I extend you mercy when you don't uh, really deserve it. I'm always understanding. I extend you grace. I go through long suffering with you, even if you don't feel like I'm there. I'm your savior. I provide you joy, even if in the midst of craziness, I am love. So he talks about, these are all the things I am. And because I'm your father, you have those same fruits. So you can also manifest it. It's an amazing book. Once again, I would highly encourage you to check it out. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $6. Who knows? I don't know, not a lot, but definitely recommended. Oh, you did order it? Okay, Almond Glaze, you gotta let me know what your thoughts are. I think it's amazing. And the other thing I will share with you is, when I get a book, I say, all right, Lord, what is it you want me to do? What am I supposed to read? How am I supposed to take this in? So as I share with people about my book, I share the same thing about this book. Sometimes you don't have to read books in chronological order. Sometimes you read it based on your need and where you are at the time in your life. And so if I'm with this book specifically, if I'm struggling with direction, it says I'm the way. I might say I'm starting in chapter 15 because I don't know which way I'm going today or tomorrow. And I need you, since you're the way, I need to know the way. I need to know that you're with me, and I need to feel you not only as my Lord and Savior, but as a father, more intimate. So let me see how you show up for me. So when you show up, I know it's you, and I can say, I see you. I see you, Pops. And so that's my best practice to you guys, or lessons learned that I've realized that every time that I say I recognize who God is and I see him and I say, all right, Dad, you be showing up for me, I feel in my head that God be like, I do what I can. I'm out here just guiding and everything. And so made that up. But I feel like he's like that because I can tell you guys, I don't know about you all, but when my kids are proud of me, I get so excited. When they're like, I see mom how you showed up. Oh, my mom's here. I'm like, yep, I'm right here. You see me? And I feel excited. I just believe God feels the same way when we acknowledge when he shows up for us as our father, not just as someone coming to correct us, someone that we're trying to hide from because we need to step out of service, or or we didn't step out of line or whatever. But he's a different kind of father. But anyhow, highly recommended. Okay. So let me go to my next question for you guys, because I was supposed to do that a while ago. Okay. Okay, so here's the thing. Do you guys know of a man that is a good father, right? But he is a subpar or bad co-parent partner? Does anybody know someone like that? Don't put their name out there, okay? We ain't trying to put people on Front Street. But if you do, what we want to know is what are ways that how does that dynamic work in a way that's still favorable for the child, right? So I hope that makes sense. I know a lot of fathers that are amazing fathers. Like one of the guys said, show up for your kids, even if your your baby's mom is tripping or the mother of your children is tripping. You ain't there to see her, no way. But you ain't there to see her. But if you don't have your stuff in order as a father, she could say you can't show up, you can't see him. So how, when the mother holds the cards, because oftentimes what I've seen, a lot of men don't have the right legal elements in place to really enforce their rights to their children so that they can be a father, with the courts behind them. And honestly, a lot of the laws are against fathers in so many different ways. It's horrible. So it does make it difficult. So that's why we said this in last conversation, making deposits, where you make deposits is very important, just like your bank. You don't just choose any old kind of bank. You make deposits and you invest in things that you feel will help your future grow. Well, one thing, this is fathers, we need for you to be more intentional about who you're making deposits in as it relates to your seeds, because you depositing these seeds into just random people who may not allow for that investment to grow or help you grow a future like you could have. That's not going to work for you. It's going to bankrupt you, and spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And so your deposits are important. A guy had stopped me at the job. We were doing a walk for men's mental health walk. I'll post that too. It's September. In September, there's a men's mental health walk here in Dallas. And then I believe there are some other ones in other locations, but I'll post it. But anyway, we were walking. I believe he's from Tanzania. And his perspective was, Shay, a man is intentional about fatherhood as long as he has kids. And my question was, but who's taking care of the kids? And he was like, well, the man doesn't have to take care of the kids. That's just, and again, it was a cultural thing. He was like, the woman should know that's her responsibility. And if she doesn't have kids, if she's not already married and she ends up having a lot of kids, we don't want to marry her. She's just another person we can have kids with, because that's what she's designated for. But she's not worth marrying. I was like, what in the world is happening? I thought I was being punked the whole walk. I was like, sir, we ain't even gonna talk no more, because I don't even know what's happening. I was like, first of all, she was good enough to deposit your seed, but she's not good enough to marry or be. He was like, well, it just depends on how many kids she had. Well, you knew that before you deposited the seed off. You dropped the seed off. You dropped another kid off. And then you just left. And so then I think he started walking fast. I didn't see him too much more in the in the race. But I think, again, it's that accountability once once you are candid enough to have that conversation. And sometimes it turns into a little rough conversation, but it's sometimes what we need to have. But do you guys know of any situation or insight you could share on how does a man who does not have a good relationship with the mother still show up and be a good father? What are ways that he can do that? Does it work? Oh, so these are questions. Does it work for the child? It seems like it wouldn't. Well, yeah. If he's a good father, but he's not connected with the mom, it probably is not working. Does anybody have any ideas or any scenarios where it does work, where there's a dysfunctional relationship between the co-parents, but the father is still able to really, do what he wants to do and show up for his kids? And I know there's a little delay, so I'll give it a few minutes. But if I don't see anything else, I'm going to assume that there's not a lot of people that know, right? Because in most cases, if you are a good father, you can have a great plan. You can have a parental plan even written out legally, right? You can have everything. But if that person you are co-parenting with makes it hard, understand it's going to be hard to execute your plan. And you'll have to fight other narratives that are planted when you're not present. So once again, it's always, I'll come back to something biblical, right? Everything that's permitted is not beneficial, right? So just because you can make a deposit and you can recreate or, whatever, doesn't mean that you should take that option, right? There are other preventative maintenance or preventative activities you can take. And I'm not talking about abortion, okay? Where guys are saying, hey, I don't want to have the kid. So I told her, so she should have got an abortion. Sir, you made the deposit. Okay. You don't get to then say, well, you know what? Go ahead and extract that seed back and give it to me. I don't want, no, you don't get to do that because you've already contributed to the situation. All right. So I guess we can go ahead and conclude that there's not a lot of situations where it shows favorable for the man if he doesn't have a good co-parent partnership. So once again, I'll just remind men, if you want to be a good father, make sure you have things in order. A lot of men don't like to get the courts involved, but sometimes you don't even have to do that right away. There are a lot of things online. There are a lot of organizations that will help you figure, and when I say things online, like templates and different parenting agreements that you can write out and then send over, and it becomes a legal document. There are organizations here in Dallas. I think they serve other places too. It's called Anthem Family Strong. They help both mothers and fathers and families reconnect. In Seattle, there's Dad's Divine Alternative Dad Solutions, I believe. In Atlanta, I know for sure Atlanta, the nonprofit is called Fathers Incorporated. They help more than just men in the Atlanta area, not only with parenting plans, but also other resources to provide an environment for their children, parenting classes to know how to show up. They also provide assistance with child support situations. I don't know. I know last week or 2 weeks ago, I shared with you that over 64% of paternity tests that are performed, they come back negative, meaning the men are not the father, right? And then I shared that over 128,000 as of February this year, 128,000 men in Texas alone are paying child support for kids that are not their children. What I learned from my friend, I had brunch with her on Saturday. She's a lawyer. In September, either 2023 or November 2023 or 2022, Texas put in a new law or a new act or some ordinance, whatever, that says that if you don't solidify paternity before the child is 2, you are required for the rest of their life to take care of them. What in the world? Isn't that horrible? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I said if I were a guy, I would be like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Because we know that every situation is not the same. Right. So again, men knowing their rights, especially if you're having children with someone you're not married to. And I say married to because that's the only thing that the law recognizes. I don't care if you're love partners for the rest of your life. Hey, do what you do. But understand when it comes down to legalities, if you are not married and something happens where you split, the father is not favorable. You're not going to be in favor with the state or the law to make sure that you get your proper rights to your children. So you'll have to work harder. So I highly suggest that you understand, again, first, who you're interacting with, who you deposit your seed in. All these are things you can, mitigation tips ahead of time. Okay. All right. So, and also another thing I don't think we highlighted, essential characteristic of a good or great father is they want to be, right? They don't know how to, but I want to be a good father. I want to be a good father. And so I'm going to start taking steps. And I think we acknowledge that once they acknowledge they want to take steps, they want to be, and then they, again, couple it with action. All right. So one question I asked that I'll skip to, in what ways can women help men be better fathers? And I'm going to go ahead and I ask men this question too. How do women help and how do we hinder you? So from your opinion, what ways can women help men demonstrate these key characteristics that are needed from men to be good fathers? Anybody have anything? And then I'll show you guys what men shared with me as it relates to this. All right. Give the men time alone with their kids and get to develop a real relationship with them. Absolutely. I think that is key, because sometimes when when the kids are around their father, sometimes they can become whoever they feel comfortable with being in front of their father without wondering, I wonder what my mom's thinking, right? Or having to cater to two different personalities. I love that. Thank you. And side note, I think it's just that's a good practice to do anyway, whether you have younger children or older children. Take time to actually get to know them one-on-one, because it really does help. All right. I'll let you guys go ahead and type some other things in. What are ways that women can help? And so here's one response said, women help us a lot when they genuinely extend opportunities to partner with us to do what is in the best interest of our children, especially if we are no longer together. If we're not doing our part, instead of withholding our children from us, perhaps try a different method, like suggesting time with a mediator or someone who can provide balanced guidance and keep so that you guys can keep, or we can keep the kids the main focus. I realize that some of us men are not open to this approach of mediation or counseling, but some of us are. So it's worth trying. I love this response because what this father is saying is that all men are not the same. Just because you had, and we're all the same man may not be the same in each season. Just because you asked him before may not be, he may be open to it a different time once you bring it up again. And really assess your approach. Wisdom is all about timing and tone. Right. So if you're like, hey, we're not getting along, so why don't we go to counseling? And you do it in that energy, sometimes a person will be like, no, I ain't going to counsel with you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't even want to be in the same room with you. Right. Or if you're approaching it, oh, I found a counselor, sometimes the person on the other end may say, yes, somebody that's favorable to you, so it really depends on how the trust factor is. But if you do it and say, hey, in a more diplomatic way, hey, it seems like we're really struggling. Maybe you can't converse with them. Maybe it's via email, text, or letter. We're really struggling. And I want to make sure that you don't feel like I'm holding the kids back from you. And I also don't want to feel like I'm doing that. But I feel like when we don't see eye to eye, I don't feel comfortable just letting the kids go or whatever. So, and I don't think I'm right either. How would you, I would suggest that we find somebody to help us. Do you have someone in mind? Are you good? I can look for someone for us and then share with you, and we can make a decision together. There are a lot of different ways you can go about it to make it more of a community effort, a unified effort. And I'll say something that I've learned in corporate America and in relationships. Whatever people are a part of, they support. So if I recommend something to you, you may process it, but if I engage you in the development of that recommendation, oftentimes you'll support it differently because you're a part of it. So making someone a part of it is important. It says another approach that I know can help is if a woman take the time to write us a note to share what they feel are the disconnects. I'm sorry, they feel are the disconnects or issues that are resulting in something counterproductive for the children. So some of the times when we're conversing with someone, we're just saying a lot of stuff, and we go down rabbit holes. But sometimes just pointing out, saying, hey, these are the different things, 3 bullets. I feel like you don't show up consistently. Here's how that could change, right? You say you're supposed to be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You oftentimes don't show up, and here are the repercussions of that. That's my issue. And it's not about me. It's about what I'm dealing with when you don't show up, right? Sometimes when we have to deliver that and we're already pissed off, you about to get this whole fire. And if they hit you back with the fire, then you have a bigger fire, right? So sometimes writing something down, it also helps the other person to digest, because a lot of men, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong if a man's on, but what I've experienced is that they're processors, and women have a lot of words sometimes. And we expect once we share those words, you have something back, and they don't have words sometimes. So give them time to process. Sometimes writing things down helps people to process. And then you say, hey, I wrote this to you. Here, read this over. If we can get back together next week, that would be great. That's something that Cooley and I currently do, honestly. Another bullet was, it helps when women take the time to learn about what encourages us as fathers and men. It also helps when we're allowed to be who we are as men and fathers and learn along the way, just like women. So what I heard this father saying was that we're learning too, but we're always held accountable sometimes for doing, like, knowing our role exactly. But real talk, mothers just found out these women don't know it either. They're learning along the way. If we could all agree, that would be helpful, instead of, doing the pot kettle thing. It's helpful when women work with us in a respectful way to establish roles, responsibilities, and boundaries. I hear a lot of conversations on social media about relationships. Is this right? Is this wrong? This is what happens in this relationship. Here's the role that this person plays. You are not a good wife if you're not doing X, Y, Z. You're not a good husband if you're not doing X, Y, Z. And here's what I'll tell you from my personal experience. Uh, well, we just celebrated 23 years in March. So the roles we established and we talked about at the beginning of our marriage is different. They change all the time based on they changed all the time based on what we were encountering financially, emotionally, mentally, with work. So as the responsibility changed, we had to assess, hey, who's stronger for this, or who has the insight, or who would like to. Both of us are weak in this area. Who want to give it a go? That was what we did, but it was us, doing it together. Some people may have looked at our marriage, if we told everybody at the time what we were doing, they probably would have said, that's Daryl's responsibility. You shouldn't be doing that. Or that's your wife's responsibility. You shouldn't be doing that. But they didn't know the dynamics of our relationship, right? And we only share a tidbit, and then they give us a tidbit, and then it ends up messing up our house. So you got to, you shouldn't be raising your kids like that. Don't let him do that, or whatever the case may be. Well, they're not there. And so what I hear this father saying is that make sure we establish roles and boundaries. And one of the boundaries may be, don't be sharing our business with everybody. So, because when we've established this parenting agreement, I'm gonna come see the kids, I'm gonna do this. Once you share it with other people and they say that's not what it should be, sometimes that can create extra issues. So these are just some different things that I feel also that women can keep in mind, which is listen, take time to understand, just like you want men to understand you. Take time to take the information that you're understanding and figure out how do you use it to encourage the relationship and nurture what you need to, especially if you're not with the father of your children. All right. And then the last question I have is, can anybody share what are some lessons learned from your dad that you feel made him great? So the things that you've learned from him, hopefully we'll stick with just the valuable lessons that you felt were great characteristics that helped you learn, helped you experience him as being a good father. Anybody have anything? And when I say father, you can say Heavenly Father, biological, bonus. I'm going to share with you guys my bonus dad, highlight the bonus dad for today, and I'll share with you the characteristics that I most admired about this particular bonus dad. Anybody have any characteristics that they felt were extremely amazing about their father? While I pull this up, I'll give you, and then we'll be wrapping it up in just a few minutes. Hopefully this information has been helpful to you guys. Anybody have anything? Oh. Yeah. Oh, I didn't read this. So it was a comment that says, give the men time alone with their children. I'm just going to read this real quick. Give the men some time alone with their children to get to develop a relationship. Sometimes men just don't get enough time with the children so that they can learn how to verbally correspond or in writing. So I have one person that said, my dad is always present. And so would you say present like in all aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally, to the degree that you need him to as an adult? This is a comment that just came across. Anybody else? What's something that you would highlight about your dad that you feel made him great? Yes, oh, true. Okay. Yes. So while you guys are typing that out, I already shared with you my one of my bonus dads, and this was some time back, but I'll go ahead and flash his picture again. But if you want to know about him, I believe I highlighted him in early July. So no, I didn't. I highlighted him for his birthday, which was the last week in June, I believe. So this is my bonus dad, Tommy. And so for those of you that also have the book, or if you don't, if you have the book or have the audio, you probably don't get to see, of course, you don't get all this, but the whole concept of this chapter was to really, again, provide an example of what some of my father figures did from a characteristics perspective, and then how they actually made an impact on me. So I already went over Tommy's story, but I'll share with you some key characteristics. And these characteristics actually still impact me, and I actually have acquired them to be a part of my personality. Tommy Rain was my first bonus dad. He was a man that I thought was my biological father. And so throughout my entire life, he passed about 3 years ago, but throughout my entire life, he was always a very jovial, very joyful, hilarious spirit. He was extremely goofy. I'm a goofball. If you know me, you know, I just am. He made up songs. Which I make up songs too. And they're only a hit in my head, not really even in my house. But anyway, but I thought he just loved life. And because of that, I saw him demonstrate that. That's something that I looked for in a man as well. I do not like moody guys. I learned right away, because I had this vibe that I saw in men that I like to be around, my bonus dads. Most of them were very upbeat, funny, conversational. So if I dated some guy that was moody, when I say 1 minute they were cool and the next minute they weren't, that meant that I was gonna wrap it up, because I didn't have time for it. And so I didn't want it in my life. And that being said, it wasn't someone that I would want to create a life with or kids with. So I use that. My next bonus dad that I'll share with you really quick is Mike McGee. Mike was a handsome. My bonus dad Tommy was handsome too. But I say this about Mike because he knew he was out there and trying to be Casanova a little bit. But he was very confident. He was very bold. He was confident. His personality, he did not meet anybody that was a stranger. He could pull you in. Very assertive. He was a direct personality, very witty. One time he called our house and he was like, he didn't know Cooley. He called and he was like, hey, is Shay there? And Cooley said, who's this? He was like, this is Michael. And I never called him Michael. So Cooley never heard me say that. He was like, this is Michael. He was like, okay, Michael who? He was like, Shay didn't tell you about me? I was like, and Cooley was like, nah. He was like, oh man, sorry about that. Yeah. And then he busted out laughing. He was like, this is Mike, you know. And Cooley was like, I was like, dude, who is this? You were very bold calling my house like this. But Mike was, he was just a natural comedian, very generous. He he was one that would always invest in others. He had 5 of his own children, but that was far after I was a part of his life. But he met my mom when I was about 6 months old, and he moved from Alabama to Seattle. Met my mom, and they started dating. And he took me home to his mom and said, "Hey, this is my daughter." And his mom knew right away. I know you're lying when you have a kid, but I stayed with his mom for most of my life. She was like my grandmother. Mike eventually got married, and so my impact story about Mike is exactly that. all of his wit, his confidence, his ability to be loving and generous, that flowed in a way that I saw it manifest throughout his life. He eventually got married when I think I was, well, maybe 12, maybe before that, maybe 9. But he then started a family with his new wife, but he invited me into that family, introduced me to his wife, and his wife was really sweet. She embraced me. They had kids, and they would go out of their way to come pick me up to take me to church with them, although I was not interested in church except for the cute boys at the church and going out to eat after. But again, I had shared with you guys earlier, I didn't know how to read at that time in my life either. I was struggling still. So I wasn't interested in going to church in that whole Bible study, because then they would ask me to read and I wasn't into that. And plus, that wouldn't have been a good look for me getting the boys. Okay. So that was that wasn't the case. But Mike was because I saw his characteristics, which were, again, bold, confident. He knew what he wanted. He was very much a nurturer, and he took care of business. It wasn't that he said it, he demonstrated that. So I saw what it looked like for a man to do that with his biological kids and with kids that were not his. And because I saw that, I knew it was possible for a man to be there. There are men like this. And so I don't have to settle for anything less. And so it's important, again, for us to realize who we have around us. I think Jerry said it earlier, find men that show characteristics that you can adopt until you can figure out your own. There are people around you, but if you don't know what a good father looks like, if you don't know what those characteristics look like, how do you know when they show up? And then when they do show up, take time to try to learn more about them. Again, without the embarrassment, like Marcel said, take time so that you can learn. And I'll share that for myself. On the flip side, my mom, she had me, some of you know, when she was young, she didn't know how to be a mother like that. Her mom went into had a stroke when she was 9. So she was in the foster care system pretty early. She didn't know how to necessarily be a mom either. So she picked up pieces where she could, and then she dropped me off at places with family member when she knew she couldn't level up in that space. And when she dropped me off there, I was blessed with certain people, women that demonstrated to me how to be a nurturer, how to actually extend grace, how to converse without being argumentative. So I liked that. So I acquired it and I practice it. So the same thing that we're sharing for men, women, we can do as well. All right. So I did share with you guys real quick that when I went to Seattle, I would visit some of the places that I lived in, and I did visit a few. We didn't get to visit a lot, but we were focused on our family time. All 4 of us, my husband and our 2 kids, hadn't been back to Seattle since my mom passed away almost 12 years ago. So we hadn't all been there together since then. And so we wanted to stay focused on creating a new experience for all of us. So I didn't get to do that. However, I'm still on a search, thanks to my friend on here who's still helping me with exploring avenues to learn more about who my biological father is. So I'll keep you guys posted on that and those resources. I will say Asia and I don't think I told you guys this last time. Asia and I was over my aunt and uncle's house, who my uncle is my mom's brother. And he and his wife took care of my mom when she was about 12, when she had her first 12, 13, when she had her first child. And so I share that to say they know a lot of my mom's, stuff, right? So my daughter was over there doing my aunt's hair. They're in their 80s. My uncle's 85 and my aunt now is 83. And Asia, we were talking about the book and everything. And Auntie said, Shay, you still hadn't found out who your father is? I said, no. And she said, your uncle knows. And I'm like, I got a whole book, and y'all telling me you know who my father is? Auntie said, yes. Now, my uncle doesn't wear his hearing aid. So that took a second to get him in here. And then she said, Willie, tell Shay, you know who Shay's dad is? He said, yeah, I know who your dad is. And I said, well, tell me, Uncle. He was like, he lived right over there off of not too far from Madrona, and start calling out things in Seattle. And Asia and I were like, get to it, Uncle. And he goes, yeah, wait a minute. Oh, it's leaving me. Oh, it's gone. I don't know who it is. Just like that. I said, Uncle. He's like, yeah, sorry. I don't remember. So anyway, the point is the quest is still I'm grateful that God can give me joy and laughter about moments like this. But I'll keep y'all posted on this quest. I have some things I have to do on my end, but yeah, we'll continue. And as I learn more, I will share more, and I'll share the resources as well. All right, y'all have a blessed night. It's been great. Hopefully you guys can take some things away from what we shared today. And our next conversation will be more panel, so you'll see more than just me. All right, y'all have a blessed night. Thank you for your time, and leave comments, leave feedback, etc. Hey, thank you for joining. You know, I love me some Netta, y'all. Anyhow, y'all have a blessed one, and I'll chat with you next time.